and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guest and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I'll introduce you to my wonderful guest, Leigh Huxley. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live or at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I love to help women to crossroads in their life, heal their past, create their future, and transform their present so they can take charge of their destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use future life progression, past life regression, angelic Reiki, guided meditations, angel oracle cards, and hypnosis to help women who feel lost get clear on their reason for being here. And I've also created several transformational packages, the journey through lifetimes, as well as a 6-week guide meditation series to help you step into confidence. Now, each episode of the show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wife in Durban, South Africa for 13 and a half years, where she was passionate about helping women embrace and enhance their outer beauty. But before, during, and after that, she has also been on her own journey of learning to love herself her whole life and has navigated many storms, some which were near misses and others that took her out. Now, some were of Lee's own doing, but others were like bolts out of the blue. And although she used the mantra, this too shall pass, like most storms, there was an aftermath of damage, destruction, and devastation. But by learning to embrace and enhance her own inner beauty, Leigh discovered how to soothe her wounds, which in time became scars and are now part of the landscape of who she is. Leigh is now inspiring women to become the best version of themselves through unconditional love and acceptance. So, without further delay, hello, Leigh, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Ray. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you so much for joining me. And before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Leigh and I want to be part of this conversation. So please don't be shy. And Eric is here already. He says, hey guys, looking forward to the episode. Hi, Eric. Great. Thank you for joining us. So, Leigh, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how we can navigate life to become the best version of ourselves?
Well, it's a long journey, as we all know. And I think it's a lot to do. There's a wonderful Sioux saying, which is a Native American wisdom tribe, I guess. I don't know the origins of it, but the saying goes, the longest journey we will ever take is from our heads to our hearts.
Yeah.
And for me, navigating life has been navigating from my head and the judgments that I held towards myself, and to others as well, but mainly towards myself with all the things that I experienced, and learning to approach life from my heart, through self-love, which is unconditional, and forgiveness.
Yeah, very, very important things. So where does your journey start?
Oh, where did it start? Um, well, I've always been aware of my spiritual side because I was brought up in a religious home, a Presbyterian background in South Africa, and at the age of 9, I became a minister's daughter. Now, I am one of 4, but I am a very, very late child. So this whole journey of a minister's daughter was my solo journey. It wasn't with my siblings. So I was very much aware of that side. But with my dad becoming a minister, it was almost like I had to grow up really quickly. I was already more comfortable with the adult world because of growing up in adult company and as an only child. And my grandfather was my greatest mentor until he passed at the age of 8. And then became a minister's daughter at 9. So all of a sudden I was thrust into this, really becoming a goldfish in a goldfish bowl as a minister's daughter. And and learning to navigate that, and also being part of a childhood. Well, trying to be a child still, but expected not to be a child.
Yeah.
Not to be, yeah, to put aside my childish behavior because I was always under the spotlight. So that was that. It was interesting navigating through my teenage years. Being a minister's daughter, we moved around a lot, so I was constantly navigating change then. And I did. I think I embraced it pretty well, looking back. But navigating change and becoming resourceful and not resisting change, that stood me in good stead for later in life. And being an only child stood me in good stead with being comfortable in my own company, which I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
So that was that. I then met my first husband when I was 15, which
Wow.
is really young, but I got married at 19.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I thought nothing of it because my sisters and brother had all got married at an early age, and so had my parents. And for me, that was the next step. We'd been in a relationship for that long time. It was never a physical relationship, and coming from a religious background, there was no sex before marriage. So it was like, well, that's the next step, and so
Yeah.
you need to get married to do that. It was like, don't know. So as we did, so I got married at 19, and then my then husband was 5 years older than me, and he got his first job in the corporate world, and we moved again to Durban. So I was born in the north of South Africa, and we moved down to the coast. Well, moved across country with my dad and his ministry. Met my then husband in Port Elizabeth, and then moved to Durban. And then he became very involved in the corporate world, and I studied health and skincare therapy, and went into employment for somebody. And not long after that, the business came up for sale. So my husband at the time said, well, we've just got to buy the business and you're going to run a business. I was like, oh.
Okay.
So we will navigate that one. And again, I just kind of, I don't know, I just tended to go with the flow and learnt, and again, that resourcefulness and having to adapt stood me in good stead. So that was that. And I threw myself heart and soul into the business. Loved it. At the time, it was interesting. At the time, I was I am an introvert. Well, no, actually, I think I'm more an ambivert, so in between an introvert and extrovert. So, but at that time, I was very much an introvert and always labeled shy, but I think I was more reserved than anything. But then having my business and having very close contact with clients really brought myself out of myself. And at the same time, we were very involved in the church, a different church, because his uncle was also a minister. I mean, it's strange.
Yeah.
We had 4 ministers in the family, 2 on my side and 2 on his side. And yeah, we won't go into all that. But anyway, but what happened, because I threw myself into the whole thing, I nearly burnt out at the age of 29. Because I expected myself to work in the business, like my staff, to run the business, to do the finances, to do the promotions, to be fully involved in the church. I don't know how many times a week. And then, it was like, it really took me by surprise when I thought, my nervous system was shot, my hormonal system was shot. I had wanted to, in my very I was a perfectionist of note, and that had a lot to do with my burnout. And in my perfectionist world, by the age of 28, I would have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and game over. I would still run the business, and I had it all organized.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work out. My my hormones were all over the show because of the stress largely. Even though I was in the skincare business, I've struggled with my skin for 30 years with acne. And so, yeah, there was a lot of paradoxes that I felt within myself, and not accepting myself and judging myself, very accepting and compassionate about others, but very judgmental of myself. Um, then, yeah, the discovery of infertility came about. It was like, okay, thought it was just me with my cycles, discovered it was my then husband as well, went through fertility treatment. And the same time, under the mix of all this, became involved in a relationship with a very dear, close friend, a mutual friend, also involved in the church. And we became quite intimate in our relationship. So there was all this strange, I shouldn't be doing this, but yeah, this very, very strange unknown seas navigating, and horrendous guilt about that. It was never physical until it was quite a long-standing relationship. My then husband, traveled away a lot, and I realized now it was really the intimacy that I was yearning. And this dear friend was a very sensitive soul, and so different to my then husband, who was very A-type corporate, rush here, do, go. And yeah, so I really enjoyed his energy, and we had wonderful, deep conversations and everything. And it was only at the latter part of the relationship that it became physical, and I fell pregnant. I was like, oh,
Whoops.
yes, it was a whoops. Oh, so then it was navigating all that. Then my parents were in a different part of the country. My dad had retired from the ministry. My mom was in the early stages of Parkinson's disease. And I just I was close to them as a child. I was very close to them, but with, getting involved in a relationship so early on and moving through it, it kind of like went. But I just had this overriding need to go and see my parents and just come clean about the whole thing, and not knowing what to expect, especially with the whole viewpoint and standpoint of religion, and you've sinned, and I really didn't know what to expect. And I remember I was in absolute fear and trepidation, and I went to see them, and I just remember as the airplane took off and we flew above the clouds, and it was almost like an angelic experience, in as much as I was like, from a higher perspective, life is so simple. and then I thought, yeah, but I know in all those houses down there, everybody's in their own turmoil and conflict, and it looks, we don't see that.
No.
Everybody's going through that, so it was like a strange comfort, almost like, you'll get through this. It's not going to be easy, but you'll get through this. So I went and I saw them, and obviously they knew something was up. I hadn't told them straight away, and I had to share it, and didn't know what to expect. Hellfire and brimstone, I expected, but it was interesting. My mom had the most unexpected response. She said, well, in the wild, the female chooses the male, and if she thinks if a male's not got good stock, she will find a male who has got. She didn't put it like that, but she took that perspective, and it really, really surprised me. I thought, oh well, yeah, it wasn't conscious, but yeah, I can see where
Yeah,
she's
maybe
coming from.
subconsciously.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, and then yeah, there's another interesting concept coming from the African culture, that if a man can't provide the seed, then somebody else within the family carries on the name. It's not in all the cultures,
Yeah.
but there is that concept there. So that I was like, okay, this feels uncomfortable, but yeah, ish. And my dad, I think he took it hard, but no judgment. And yeah, but he did. He did insist. He said, "You're gonna phone your husband now and tell him." And I was like, "I can't."
Can
He
you
said,
do it,
"Yes, I
Dad?
will. You will. You'll pick up the phone now and you will tell him." So that, yeah, huge courage, anxiety, fear, everything rolled into one. But I did. And then I spent, I think, a couple of days there, and I just my dad um, and I went for walks. It was They lived at that time on a seafront, and we just went for walks. And I just said to him, we spoke about all sorts of things. It was quite a healing time, really. And I said, Dad, I know now. I mean, I was petrified going back home. Because it was facing my then
Yeah.
husband, it was facing the church, and friends and clients, and how much do you share and how much don't you share, and it's this whole, yeah, I don't know. It was a strange time, but I just said to him, Dad, I understand now, because I felt so torn inside. I said, I understand why in the Old Testament women got stoned for being unfaithful, because I said, right now, I think I would choose that option. It was like, I don't think I said it just like that, but and yeah, so it was a challenge. It was a challenge, and didn't know what to expect. How my husband would respond when I got home. He was gracious. I expected him to boot me out and say, "Off you go," but he didn't, and he chose to accept the fact that I was pregnant and the fact that he wouldn't be able to father a child. So this was his opportunity to become a father. So we made, we came to peace with that. I was petrified of losing my son in the pregnancy because of the whole thing of I had sinned and that it would be taken away from me. So I had to navigate that, the fear
Yeah.
of loss, and then navigating how I managed people. And we didn't tell the whole story. And then saying goodbye to this dear friend who then chose to move away. So lots and lots of mixed emotions, difficult emotions,
Yeah.
and yeah. And but at the same time, horrendous guilt, but at the same time, such appreciation that I'd been given this gift to become a mum when I didn't think I would.
Yeah.
So that was, he was my gift, and loved my pregnancy, uh, loved being a mum. Um, when he was a year old, we got an opportunity to move over to the UK from South Africa. And we didn't ever address the initial problems.
Mm.
They got shoved under the carpet. Life carried on, and so our paths dissipated. And yeah, and because the root cause was never addressed, I betrayed my marriage again. Not consciously. It wasn't a conscious choice. That sounds wrong, because they're like, people who have been betrayed in marriage, they think of the betrayer as it was on purpose, or you went looking for that.
Yeah.
But from my side, it wasn't a conscious thing. But as I know now, your energy attracts certain things, and because there was so much unfulfillment in my life, because around intimacy, I obviously, attracted that again.
Yeah.
So, so that was another big thing, because I've done it again and again. The self-judgment just builds and builds and builds. And but when I had my son, we removed ourselves from the church. From my faith was still there, but I excommunicated myself.
Right. Okay.
Nobody else did it. I did it to me, and I cut my spiritual side off. Um, you know, our spiritual side is always there, and source, or however you want to term it, is always there for us. It's us who puts blocks in the way.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so it was a long navigation. And then again, that's with my now husband, and then a whole navigating around blended families. That I did not expect that. He didn't understand my son. He does have children of my own. So the conflict wasn't between me and them. It was between him and my son. So my whole life, if I reflect back, I was always in this drama triangle of relationships. I was in the middle of all the relationships. So I became aware of it in the blended family circumstances, because it was me, my ex, my husband, me, my son, my husband, me, my ex, and his dad, and just this constant triangle. And I was quintessentially the people pleaser, the overgiver, the fixer, the changer, the rescuer. And I didn't realize I was playing those roles, because my mom had modeled self-sacrifice her whole life. And that's what I thought
Yeah.
a woman's role was, and especially as a woman, minister's wife. And I thought that was normal, and I copied that,
Mm.
not consciously, but I thought that's the way it was. And so it took me a long time to realize I was doing that, and it was always, it was a difficult navigation. And then the next big bolt out the blue was when my son was 15, just after he had finished GCSEs. My ex-husband had been unemployed, and then he got employment in China because he was quite high up in his job. It was supposed to be a contract, which at that time I was not in communication with him, my ex-husband, and his new wife, because they were becoming very emotionally manipulative with me, and I just was in no state to cope with that. Emotionally, I was overwrought, I was distraught, and I was self-harming because I hated myself. I was skin picking myself to death because I just couldn't deal with these uncomfortable emotions. And I was in this constant emotional blizzard. So I stopped contact with them. So it was, but it put my son in a difficult spot, because communication was done with him, through him, and that's not the best way, but that was the only way it could happen because of where I was at. And then all of a sudden he was supposed to go and visit them in China, and then all of a sudden he went, the contract became permanent, and so my son was supposed to just go for a visit. And within a very short space of time, I want to say 2 weeks, it went from, you're not just going to visit, you're going to live there. And he had never lived with him 24/7. He's an only child. He's a quiet boy. He needs and likes his downtime. They were social butterflies. Three very demanding girls who were used to private education. He wasn't. So with these all dynamics going on, but at the end of the day, he wanted to go. He wanted to try. So I gave him my blessing. I said, if that's what you want to do, I won't stand in your way. It was very difficult. And I was left with the feeling, well, both my husband and I, with this is either going to make him or break him.
Yeah.
And so in 2 weeks, I went from an empty nest, because he's my only child, and it literally felt like he'd been ripped from my womb.
Yeah.
It was the strangest feeling. And I was told, I said, oh, I'll see you at Christmas. And I was told, probably not, and probably not till the contract was finished. So that was, but anyway. So from in a space of 2 weeks, I went from empty nest to a full-time carer because he had a psychotic episode when he was there, which I had no idea what that meant. I'd never navigated. I'd never had any experience with the mental health world, personal experience or family experience. It felt like I'd been thrust into a different planetary system. And so I had to navigate that.
Oh gosh. So did your son come back because of it, or did you have to go
Well,
there?
yeah, they wanted to keep him there, and then they got afraid of the diagnosis there and the system there. They didn't understand. So then they wanted me to fetch him, and it was a bank holiday here, and you need visas to go. It was just crazy stuff. And eventually my ex-husband brought him across. It was a miracle that he got here because they flew Virgin Air, and I mean, I didn't know what state he was going to be. He didn't recognize me on the phone. He didn't know who I was. So I thought, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to be dealing with. And then he came. When we fetched him, he looked like Stephen Hawkins in a wheelchair. It was just like, oh my goodness. And the journey on the way back home was surreal. I had taken some snacks and bits and pieces. He knew. He didn't call me mom. He called me by my name. He remembered where we lived. He remembered our address. He remembered we had dogs, but he didn't know what a grape was. It was like an alien that had landed. He just yeah, strange. And then the first night was strange. It was definitely Lord of the Rings Gollum, where I'd be trying to, horrendous hallucinations going on, which I had no idea what was going on. I just tried to soothe him as much as, and then why I say it was a miracle he got back home was I had red toenail polish on, and he saw it and he thought it was blood. Now, Virgin Airline was all red.
Right.
Yeah, and he would freak out, and I'd calm him and soothe him, and then he would look at me and he said, "Your voice has changed." I'm like, "It hasn't changed," and he had, and then he would just scuttle into the corner of a room and hide like Gollum. So, and then it was trying to get him in the right care system and getting all that going and getting him to college. The whole time, my ex-husband wanting him to go back there and just go back into. I had this constant threat of him. It was just strange time. Anyway, he went. Initially, I found it quite, other than the hallucinations and terrible paranoia. He would say, the police were after him. He would say to me at night, "This is the last time I'm going to sleep in my bed." It's like, wow, you're not going anywhere. You're home. You're safe. It was like, no, the police are going to come get me in the night. And I was like, well, why? He's going to put me in jail, but why? I was trying to rationalize and reason with him, which I know now you couldn't, but at the time,
Yeah.
and also trying to unpack his suitcases. He was convinced he had stolen everything. I was like, no, you haven't. These are your things. But it was just this strange conversation. Anyway, but I now know, but I didn't know then. I was doing the best I could. And but at the same time, we would go down to the woods and walk the dogs, and we would have the most fascinating conversations. It was almost like his mind was an open book, and amazing insights of things. I was fascinated, the things he would come. I was almost like it was his higher self communicating with me. It was really a very precious time in one way. But then once he got into the system, right onto the right medication for him, he shut down like a book. And well, yeah, that's when I hit the wall because I couldn't read him anymore. He emotionally shut down. He's always he's a typical boy. He doesn't share much, and he's a quiet boy. But after all this conversation and fascination, and it just he closed down, and I really really hit the wall. And it was a little puppy came into our life. She was, yeah, sent to us for sure, and she pulled me out of it. So, but then, yeah, he did his college, and then he went to university, which didn't work out twice. So it was again navigating him coming back into the home. With my husband really not happy with it and freaking out about it and judging him and just horrible stuff going on, and him struggling with depression and just craziness. And then 2019 came around, and in a space of a month, my husband lost his job with Thomas Cook. He was an aircraft engineer that just collapsed.
Yeah.
His parents got diagnosed, his father with Alzheimer's and his mom had heart conditions. And uh, it, so that was all end of September, end of October, uh, yeah, end of November. So it was like a two month period, 6 weeks period, really intense.
Yeah.
And my son was away at uni, and he'd come home, and I don't know, he seemed, in hindsight now, I can see that he was starting to get anxious. And then, but he seemed okay. And then a week after him being home, he had another psychotic episode. And so it was, fortunately, my husband was around because we had to drive in the middle of the winter night to Sheffield to get him. And just as well, we got him because if he had got sectioned in Sheffield, then we got locked down. It would have been a nightmare. So by the grace of God, we got him home. I knew this time what more to expect. I was just so sad for him to go through all this again.
Yeah.
And this time I didn't, because the first time we managed initially from home, and it was really, really difficult because I was navigating shifts with my husband the first time, so days, nights, and things would literally fall apart as I was trying to cook tea. My son would go into an absolute meltdown and, just crazy stuff. But we would get the crisis teams were coming in and out, and they were good, but it was exhausting because they would just arrive.
Yeah.
So the second time I didn't have the emotional capacity because I was supporting my husband with all the fear he was going through. He's not of the same belief system as I am about losing his job and just all the fears and what ifs and him with his parents. And so it was a long 12 hours in A&E because you have to wait for all the right teams to come in. And it was exhausting dealing with somebody with paranoia, trying to keep them in one place, in one room, so that you didn't miss teams coming in, just crazy, crazy stuff. So by the time they got there, 12 hours later, I was absolutely exhausted. And they just said to me, he needs to be hospitalized. And I just I can't, I can't do this. Because it felt like I was betraying him.
Yeah.
The other part of me knew that would be the best thing because I just did not have the emotional capacity to deal with this, with everything else going on. So it broke my heart taking him to be sectioned for 2 weeks. And then, navigating that. It was just before Christmas and hoping that he would recover quickly enough to be released, so to speak, and that he wasn't sectioned on the next section. But it did work out, but it was hard. It was very distressing getting him these distress calls from him in the middle of the night. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting at the window. Where are you? And it's just awful. Yeah. But I could visit him. So every afternoon I would visit him and could spend a couple of hours. And that was the only time he was allowed out of the ward. and it was freezing cold in winter, but there was a tiny little garden. We would go on the Wirral, we'd go and look, and we'd watch the birds. And there was a little robin who always used to come and visit us, and that was just our little angel
Yeah.
that got us through. And yeah, and then he got back, and yeah, just the journey goes on. It's like, but in the middle of this, all this, and I don't even know how or when I've lost the timelines on it. I decided that I'd always kind of been quite interested in coaching, and I'd heard about it many years prior when he was actually a little boy, and I thought, that sounds interesting. And then I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. And sorry, just to backtrack on that, it was when I turned 50. So I'm 55 now. When I turned 50, that's when I reconnected with my spiritual self. I found Hay House. I found Dr. Christian Northrup and the Wisdom of Menopause, and then I found all these magical speakers, and then I found all these magical platforms, and that was my reconnect. Started meditating. That was my reconnection, and that really did help me in the storms to hold my scent as much as I could. So then I came across a course somewhere along the line, and it must have been between psychotic episodes and I don't, and my husband losing his job. I cannot remember when I signed up for a spiritual life coaching course, and I did that because I qualified in 2020, in mid 2020 March. No, so but I had to do it all online because of
Yeah.
Zoom. I mean, because of the lockdown. So somewhere along the line that came to play, and so I've kind of been playing around with that the whole time, and then obviously doing a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal development, a lot of self-love, and nothing structured. It's just it was just a process, that learning to love myself and forgiving myself for my perceived wrongdoings, and just accepting myself, and the journey of self-love. Because at the end of the day, the longest relationship we will ever have is with ourselves. If we don't like and don't get along with ourselves,
Yeah, we're a little bit lost if we don't get on
yeah,
with ourselves.
then we don't like and get along with other people, because it's really ourselves we don't like. So, yeah, but that's a long conversation in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's kind of like all this stuff, and you've kind of like had this period to work on it, and the self-love that you've gained from it, and the forgiveness. And forgiveness really is such an important thing. And I think a lot of people really tend to forget that thing. It is one of I think they say it's one of the hardest things, isn't it? Is to forgive yourself and forgive others. And sometimes it's easier to forgive others than it is
oh
to
yeah,
actually
oh
forgive
yeah.
yourself.
I was always very forgiving of others because of my background. In religion, it's like very, very compassionate and forgiving and gracious to everybody but myself.
Yeah, and we are the most, really, we are the most important thing in our life.
Yeah,
And when we're happy with ourselves, then we can help everyone um, around us. And it's really interesting, because a lot of women do tend to, you know, everyone always has that spiritual side, but it's kind of like a lot of women tend to find it when they get to their 50s or something.
yeah,
It kind of like something just clicks, and you go, "Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah,
Oh yeah."
mm, yeah, yeah. There is something. It's a portal, really, that opens up. Yeah, they
Yeah.
they don't call it the wise woman years for nothing.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I like. The wise women, and that,
Yeah.
not what some other people might call it.
No,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I bumped up into all those things, and I found myself getting sucked into the four C's, as I've shared on other podcasts, is like the criticizing, the comparing, the competing, the complaining. And boy, was I sucked into the complaining. I don't like this, and don't like this, and this and that. And then all of a sudden I just thought, no, stop it. This is enough. Enough. It's like, enough. I think that's, if people, say to me, how did you get through all these different challenges? What was the pivot point? And I can't really say anything. Then I do remember on each incident, I just say to myself, enough.
Yeah.
I can't explain. It was no long-winded. It was just a decision, and I think it often comes down to us. We've just got to decide. It's like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like that inner knowing that kind of like goes,
yeah,
okay, I know what I need to do now. Enough.
enough. Yeah,
And I mean, Susie says, "Wow, you've achieved so much at such a difficult time."
yeah, yeah. But we all are. We have got so much inner strength, but we often don't give ourselves credit, because, like Susie saying that to me, um, she's saying that to me because that's happened in her life as well. You see in others what's also in you. And we've all had our challenges, and we've all dug deep, and we've all navigated them. And yeah, sometimes it just takes a bit of reflection and say, yeah, I've been through a lot, and yeah, still.
Yeah, and do you think that through all of this, that spiritual insight you had as a child, and obviously being the minister's daughter, etc., do you think that, whether you've had those little nudges, those little, okay, pull yourself out of it now, do you think that kind of like comes from having that link to your spiritual side?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because even all in all the self-judgment, and not liking myself for it was so paradoxical, because, as I said, I didn't like myself for the hurt I'd caused my ex-husband. I judged myself for that, but at the same time there was the paradox of the gift of my son. So there's this constant the shadow and the gift, and there's always a gift in the shadow, but sometimes you have to look for it a bit more, but there is always a gift. But yeah, there was always that connection the whole time, even though I had removed myself from the church, religion, however you want to put it, even my connection to source, because of self-judgment and lack of self-worth. I didn't feel I was worthy or deserving of anything. At the same time, I still didn't lose my faith, because it was there when my son was struggling so much.
Yeah.
Oh, and another thing that really, really, really helped me in the difficult time of my divorce and my son was I came across, now this is interesting, but again, it's like we sometimes create these beliefs in our minds. I don't know. But Lorna Burns' book, Angels in My Hair.
Yeah.
Now, I remember before my second betrayal, and before my eventual divorce, I had seen that book in Costco, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. But there was something in me because of my religious upbringing, which is strange, because the angels in the Bible, and I, as a child, all I wanted to ever see was my guardian angel.
Yeah.
I had this desire to see. So I don't know. I don't know where this all went a bit askew, but I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Oh no, you mustn't go there. It's a bit beyond the.
Yeah.
And then I when the whole issue leading up to my divorce came, I actually bought it and I read it, and I loved it, and that helped me so much when my dad passed as well, because he but I think also because even though he was a minister, he went into the ministry very late. He had a secular, he was quite high up in his secular job before that. Um, 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 After when he retired from his ministry, he went on a very deep dive exploration into a lot of very metaphysical, esoteric, way out there teachings, which I can't even remember, but I was fascinated. But so that actually gave me permission to explore beyond what the church, the beliefs of the secular beliefs of the
Yeah.
church. So I read that book and I loved it. So, but when my dad, he passed at the age of 88, and that was 2010. He managed just to get there in time to see him, because it was a long journey from here back down to South Africa, and he lived on the coast. So it was a good 24-hour journey. I was like, oh, I should have brought that book, because I mean, this book, there were pages folded everywhere, because I was just like, oh, that's wonderful. And I used to tell everybody about it and hand it everywhere. And I was like, oh, I should have brought that book. And I found a copy in the airport just at WH Smith, so I bought it and I read it on the plane. And I was traveling with my older sister, and I was sharing with her. And reread the chapter on the stairway to heaven,
Mm.
and that was just so soothing when I was with my dad, and I gave him permission to pass, and so he passed, with me. But it was just that, yeah. And there was quite a surreal moment where I said, Dad, do you want to go? And he was like, yeah. I said, well, go, Mom's waiting for you, because she had long passed.
Yeah.
And a shaft of light came in, and it was just, he passed. And there was part of me that I thought, I better call my sisters and my stepmom, and another part of me was like, no, just leave him. So
Yeah.
that was, yeah. So yeah, those were always there, but I never gave myself permission to explore that sort of thing until I was totally out the church. And so there's always been an angelic connection. Um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's kind of just in my.
It's there, and
Yeah,
that's the beauty, they're
yeah.
just there.
Yeah, and also I like one of the favorite things was, she was like, there's so many unemployed angels around. They're like just waiting for people to ask for help.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
we forget, to ask for help. And I mean, I still fall into that. I'm not over that. It's just like, oh yeah, you just need reminders. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, you do. So it's great that you've kind of like, with all your experiences in that, when you do your coaching now, you have so many, and you must have so many insights that you can give your clients, um, and that with it, and obviously it's easy for them to relate with you because of all these experiences that
yeah,
you've actually had, that you kind of like understand where they're coming from.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And which is really beautiful, and it's really what a coach, a good coach, can do, to have that understanding.
yeah,
And I can definitely see how, seeing your inner beauty, can really help enhance your life, um, totally, because from your story and everything, when you really discovered your inner beauty in that, you kind of like, okay, let's see how now I can be of service and help other people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think quite a big shift came when, after my son's first psychotic episode. And it was just a strange thing, because I coped with it at home. I had the faith, I had the strength, I had I knew I was being supported. But then going back into my normal world. I mean, fortunately, I had the time and space. I didn't have employment that I had to go to, and things like that. So it was a much smoother road than some moms have to navigate. But I just felt so vulnerable when I got out into the outer world. When I went back to my gym, I was like, it was just strange. I did not expect that. Um, uh, but what was interesting is people's responses, people knew, but they were too scared to ask, or they asked and then I would get upset, and then they thought they'd caused the upset. I was like, no, 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 no. Today I'm upset. It's not you. It's just me. I just feel so vulnerable. But when I did share openly, they opened up
Yeah.
and they were like, oh, yeah, my husband or my aunt or my cousin, or, you know, so that's why I'm really happy to share vulnerably about all my, what we commonly in human terms called mistakes, but that they really mistakes. We just went in the wrong direction. We
Exactly.
took a detour, an unexpected detour, and that's what it is. So when I'm able to, I know that when I'm able to share vulnerably, it helps others, because I was helped in times where people just shared vulnerably.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's an absolutely beautiful way to be. And sometimes, people do forget, especially therapists. That sometimes, just share your vulnerability, because you'll be amazed at
Mm,
who you might actually be helping
yeah.
with that. So, thank you for sharing your story. Now, as you know, I do guide meditations and angel oracle cards. So each week, I like to ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves as those watching. So, Leigh, what would you like me to do?
I think I would like an angel oracle card, please.
Hey, I have him in my hand.
Which deck have you got?
I have got Denise Lynn's The Sacred Traveller Oracle cards.
Okay.
And I quite like these. I work with these ones a lot. They're one of many decks I
I'm
work
sure.
with.
Yeah.
And every time I go down to Glastonbury and run a retreat down there, I kind of like go, yeah, I'm not going to. Oh, and I end up I think the last two times I've been down there, I haven't actually gone there, to get any cards. And I come back with 2 packs each time. So God knows when I run the retreat in June, what I'm going to come back with. I'm not going down for cards, but if they just happen to come away. Anyway, when I do the cards for what you need to know for your present. So even though I work with the past, when we go into and we look and work with the past, it's to heal the past so it doesn't affect us in our present.
Mm,
And when I take people into the future, it's so they know and understand their present, so that it doesn't affect them in the future, so that it doesn't affect them or they can be fully present in the here and now. So let's see what we all need to know for our highest good. So, what does Leigh and everyone who's watching this need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? What does Leigh and oh, okay, that one's decided to flip itself out. Absolutely perfect with it just ties in so much with what we're talking about. Uncovering treasure beneath the surface lies great bounty.
yeah. Yeah.
How very apt is that for what we have been um, talking about, and by you sharing your story has been uncovering that treasure,
Mm,
that great bounty of information and wisdom that can really go on and help other people for that. So, this is kind of like saying you are doing the right thing, you are on the right path. With what you're doing and sharing your story, because there's so many people that are going to be helped by this. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And for all those watching, again, look deep within yourself. You have beautiful treasure there that you can
mm,
bring out, and you can shine to the world and help others on their journey. So beautiful. That card came out for you, Leigh, and all those watching.
thank you.
And it's absolutely amazing. So, Leigh, do you have any insights or thoughts to leave our viewers?
Just um, to embrace your inner beauty, to love and accept yourself for who you are and where you're at, And when you do that, then you are able to love and accept others for who they are and where they're at.
Beautiful. Yeah, a good reminder for all of us. So I hope everyone that you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, as I know I definitely have. And Leigh sharing her story has been absolutely amazing. So Leigh, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, I think the best place. I mean, I am on social media. I post a few posts, quite a few, once a week. I post around self love, and I post some inspirational quotes. I am on both Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Leigh Huxley, so my name. Instagram is Huxley Leigh for some reason. Don't ask me how I do these things. For me, I'm always trial and error. I was like, how is that? I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. But a dear friend has just recently developed a website for me, and so it's also leighuxley.com. And on there, if you there's a free gift of a self love package, and that is a self love hypnosis that this friend who created. She's a hypnosis. She does self hypnosis.
Mhm.
Very talented lady, and she created the self love one for me as a free gift, and also some affirmations. I am affirmations that tie in with the self love. So it's a lovely. I think it's a 20-minute self hypnosis around self love. It's kind of a hybrid between a self hypnosis and a meditation, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely recommend checking out Leigh's site. It looks very beautiful on there. I was wondering about it earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So you're welcome to sign it. It's all news, so I'm not at the stage yet of um, getting together newsletters and things like that. So, but
It,
just sign
it,
and get the gift, and who knows where I'll navigate this next. What
well,
my next navigation is going to be, I don't know.
that's it. You're an eternal navigator. So
I am
yeah. So,
sure.
so your website in the business is the next piece of the journey for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It is. Yeah.
So, thank you, Leigh, for sharing your story, and thank you to everyone who's watching. And of course, if you have reached a crossroads in your life and you need some guidance in finding the meaning of your life and getting clear on your path, then I'd love to be that guide for you. So please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free clarity call. To discuss where you are now and how you can move forward to take charge of your destiny. And of course, please feel free to join my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording where I take you into a future lifetime to get guidance and clarity that you can use in your current life, as well as a couple of other free gifts. And obviously, it keeps you updated with everything that's going on and everything I do. So thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny just like you. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, so that you know when the show goes live or when I post new guides and meditations that can help you on your journey. And I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. Take care. Thank you, Leigh. And
Thank
thank you for
you.
those that joined in.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.